Hey everyone, Video Game Lover here, and I decided to test out a different part of my game room. As you can see, this is one of my bookshelves that I have, and it's full of video games like you see. But anyways, today I want to share you guys some of my favorite video game controllers. This was a video that I planned to do for such a long time, but unfortunately I wasn't able to get around the time. But now, here we are. Before we start, I want to showcase a few honorable mentions. So first we have the Sega Dreamcast controller. This controller is pretty nice, but I feel that there's not that many buttons, and I feel without another analog stick, playing 3D games on the Dreamcast is a little bit clunky, but I still like this controller. It's just not my favorite. I also, honorable mention, this one's a really good one, the Sega arcade stick with 6 buttons, as you can see. Really nice. I love it. It feels very good. And I don't want to include third-party controllers, so this will be, in my opinion, my favorite Super Nintendo controller made by a third party, and that is the ASCIIware ASCII pad. It feels very nice, very skinny. D-pad's pretty nice. I love the colored buttons, because that's the Super Famicom controller. So anyway, without further ado, let's begin this list. Coming in at number 10. This controller, not many people really like. And this is why, to me, it's at number 10, because a lot of people don't like it, but I happen to like it a little bit. The Xbox Duke controller. Yeah, it's very massive. Not many people really like this controller, but I kind of like the design a little bit of this controller. I just like the big Xbox logo. The buttons are so mushed up. I don't know, I really like the analog sticks to this controller though. They feel very nice, and it's just a decent controller. I really like the Duke controller. Personally, the way how I play it, I use my middle fingers for the shoulder buttons, my first finger right here, and the thumbs do all the work. It works very nice like that. So the Duke controller is my number 10. Number 9, the old classic NES controller. Now the only reason it's kind of high on this list, or low on this list, is because, well, it kind of cramps my hands a little bit. It's not, you know, well shaped. I mean, I know it's an NES, it's the first one, but it's of course a classic, an all-time classic controller, but it's not my absolute favorite. But I still like this controller when I had an NES, so nice to still have it. Coming in at number 8, the original Sega Genesis controller, 3-button. I really like the shape of this controller, but sometimes, like what about the Xbox Duke controller, it does kind of cramp my hands. But I just like how simple the buttons are, just 3 buttons, start button. Very nice for like beat 'em up games, but the big problem with this controller came with the fighting games, unfortunately. So the fighting games kind of weren't good with this controller, but I still like this controller. It's a classic design. I really love it. Coming in at number 7, we have the Super Nintendo controller. Perhaps very iconic, the very revolutionary controller because of the shoulder buttons. I know it might not be the very first, but we'll see. But I just really love this controller. I love the D-pad. The buttons feel nice. One thing that I just don't like, and I prefer the Super Famicom controller, is I don't like the colors in the buttons. I prefer the red, yellow, green, blue rather than lavender and purple. But still, this is a really nice controller. It just feels so good in my hands. So awesome. Now we're gonna get to really my favorite controllers. These controllers I really love. So coming in at number 6 is the S controller for the original Xbox, in particular the Halo green one. I love this color. I'm a sucker for these translucent controllers. This controller is very nice. So Microsoft, of course, shrunk the controller because a lot of people didn't like the Duke controller. I really like the design of this. The joysticks feel nice. The triggers on top feel nice, and the buttons very nice and responsive. The D-pad it's okay, but this controller is very, very good. It feels so good in my hands. Coming in at number 5 is perhaps maybe my favorite Nintendo controller of all time. The Nintendo GameCube Controller. I just love this thing so much. I just love the joystick. I just love the C button. The only thing I just don't really like is the D-pad's a little iffy. It's just so tiny. But other than that, I just love this controller. It feels so good in my hands. The shoulder buttons feel very good. I just think this is a very well made controller by Nintendo. And this controller is an immortal. Nintendo still make this controller to this day, which is insane. But I really love the GameCube controller. It's amazing. Number 4. We have probably my favorite retro PlayStation controller, the DualShock 2. I mentioned this in the live stream. I love the DualShock 2. It's so comfortable. I love the analog sticks and the D-pad. See, the problem I've had with a lot of PlayStation controllers has been the D-pad. The D-pad in the PS1 and especially the DualShock 3, I really can't stand the D-pad. But the D-pad here is very nice and silky, so I really like that. And this controller just, it feels so good, and I love these colors that Sony made for the PS2. Really awesome controller. I love the DualShock 2. But however, it's not my favorite PlayStation controller, because at number 3, in my opinion, this is the greatest PlayStation controller ever. The DualShock 4. This controller obliterates every PlayStation controller in my opinion. It's just the feel. The feel is so good. The buttons, so good. And most importantly, the D-pad. The D-pad is just phenomenal. Never hurts my thumb. It's just such a comfortable controller. Yeah, the battery life might be a little iffy, but I just love this controller a lot. It is, in my opinion, one of the best controllers. Definitely the top 3. And it's so cool to hear that this controller is the best selling controller ever, because I love this thing so much. Now, we come to the final 2. It's really hard because these 2 controllers, in my opinion, are some of the greatest controllers of all time. They are so comfortable. So without further ado, we begin. At number 2, the 6-button Genesis controller. What more can I say about this controller? It's just almost perfect. The layout, the feel of this controller is amazing. The buttons feel very good. And the best part of all, the D-pad. The D-pad is incredible in this controller. It's so comfortable. It just feels so good in your hands. And this was the best controller for the Genesis because of the fighting games. However, there's one more controller that just edged this. And in my opinion, this is the greatest controller ever made. And it's unfortunate it was on this system because this system did very well in the US, but I still love this controller. The Sega Saturn Model 2 controller. Now, keep in mind, this is the Model 2. This is the Model 1 controller. The shoulder buttons are pretty damn bad in it. The D-pad's a little iffy. The shape to this controller is not all that well. This controller fixes everything. The shoulder buttons are pretty decent. But what makes this controller amazing? The buttons. The buttons feel good. The form factor is perfect. I remember when I first held this controller, it fits so well to my hands. I felt like my hands went to heaven. That's how much I love this controller. And the D-pad. The glorious D-pad. Sega, kudos to Sega for making this controller. I feel like this is one of the perfect controllers ever made, especially for 2D games, fighting games, you name it. It's just so damn good. It's just an amazing controller. But anyway, guys, I hope you enjoyed this little video. Just want to share off to you guys some of my favorite video game controllers. And I hope you guys like this new little angle I decided to do. So, if you want, tell me what you think about this sector of my room. for my videos. Anyway, guys, I'll see you guys in my next video. Peace.